All right, hello, metal maniacs. It's the Meista from Brews and Tunes. Cheers. I am absolutely thrilled tonight. I am chatting with the one and only Jeff Potts, of course, multi-instrumentalist, of course, of the Fae and Mantic Ritual and Volcana and ex-Warbringer. Jeff, thank you so much for chatting with me. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be chatting with you. So first off, I have to say, and I know the album's been out for, well, a little over a year now, but the last Faye album, uh, uh, Books with Maps, Volume One, I fucking love it. It's incredible. What an amazing album.
Thanks so much.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I saw that we booked the interview and then you bought a copy, so I really appreciate it, man. Thanks for the
Yeah,
support.
I'm obsessed. It's one of those one of those albums. So I pulled it up on Bandcamp, and I was working and I was playing the album, and I'm like, I have to own this. I have to own. I fell in love with it immediately. It just
Wow.
so many amazing aspects of that album. I love the I mean, one, I love fantasy, so I'm like, oh, this is right up my alley. And then the this really cool heavy 70s hard rock and folk metal vibe. I love I love what you guys have done. It's really incredible.
That's awesome, man. Thanks. Yeah, that was kind of the goal, was to take all the fantasy stuff, but do the fantasy in this kind of groovy 70s way, more like I love Blind Guardian, but I love Zeppelin more. And I like
Okay.
this kind of more rootsy approach to fantasy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
more folky kind of. I don't know. You've
And
heard the record, I like the big and bombastic, epic Queen, what have you, fantasy metal, but I like the dirtier kind of.
yeah. And it's funny you mentioned because that was exactly what I keyed into immediately was, because again, like you said, I love Blind Guardian. I love that fantasy element of Blind Guardian, and lyrically, you definitely have captured that. But yeah, it's very Zeppelin-esque. It's very early 70s. Especially with the keys, your organ playing, and there's kind of some Deep Purple
Yeah.
in there, and
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
Uriah Heep, and oh yeah, and
All
I
that
love
stuff.
it.
And even lyrically, I think those bands all did fantasy, but it was a little more mysterious. Like, it's all a little less on the nose
Yeah.
in those bands. I always thought that was so cool. It like keeps a little bit more of the folklore mystery element to it. So
Yeah, and I like that you went down that road too. I thought that was yeah,
yeah.
very cool. And you mentioned Queen, and you do a cover of Queen, which is fantastic. And I have to admit, anytime I see somebody's doing a Queen cover, I'm like, let's
Yeah, here
see,
we
what's
go.
this gonna be? And when yeah, Death on Two Legs, like, whoa,
Done a couple now. If you go on YouTube, we used to have James Luna singing, like when
oh,
it was first conception of the band, and it was the pandemic hit, so everyone was doing those green screen, split screen videos. And I wanted to do some of those, but I was like, it has to be a full song take. It has to feel live.
yeah,
So it has to be as live as we could get during like 2020 lockdown. So we did the Fairy Feller's Masterstroke from Queen 2,
no, yeah.
and it was cool. It was like an ambitious one. It was a lot of work, but it was cool.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I love about and I noticed this when if it, and I'll have a link so people can check this out in the description. But you've got a link to the making of the album, and what I love is that it's old school, 70s kind of style, like everybody all in the studio, not
As a
in
room.
yeah, you're not sending MP3s to each other. You're playing live with one another in a studio.
Yeah.
Yeah, very analog, very, very organic.
I
Which,
wanted that as much as possible. Like, I really set off on this mission to be like, I want to make fantasy metal that feels real.
yeah,
Because I feel like even in like power metal, if you ask everyone, what's your favorite power metal album? A lot of people are gonna drop like Imaginations from the Other Side.
Mm.
The fifth Blind Guardian record. It's super thrashy and it's super raw. Like
Yeah.
the kick drums all over the place. If he has to just like start on a diamond, it's like, oh, they're really playing this shit. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a really raw record, and I'm like, power metal has just become so produced, and a lot of it just sounds good that way. I get it, but I'm like, I didn't feel that grit in it of like, I don't know. I thought it would make sense to try to do it and make it feel real. So we ended up going to Argentina to record it. And
Oh,
that's where,
wow.
yeah, our drummer lives. My bass player grew up down there, and he
Oh,
was like my best bud. We lived in LA, had all these, we played together, we worked on projects together. And I had quit the band Gygax and was kind of like moping around like you do after you quit a band. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. And he was like, you have some songs, right? And I'm like, I have random demos I have written over the years with no particular musicians in mind. And he was like, I have this drummer back in Argentina who would love to do something heavy. And they were getting together yearly and just throwing together a tour in like 2 days with some beast ass musicians
wow.
and doing like blues, R&B, funk, kind of jazzy stuff, a little bit of rock and roll too. And they were just like touring wineries for fun for 2 weeks. And he was like, dude, I have this studio. You should see pictures of it and you should see what it costs in American dollars. So I was like, well, I did want to make an album with no labels involved where I had creative control and just went completely nuts and did the weird Jeff stuff. So that's kind of what we did. I demoed everything up and sent it to the drummer. And
Nice.
I remember I sent him the demo I made of the song, A Song for Severian, which is like definitely the trickiest tune on the record. There's a lot of notes, there's just a lot of parts and a lot of little accents to catch and stuff. And he sent me back beautiful handwritten sheet music to the drum part of the entire song, a photo of it the next day. And I was
Wow.
like, okay, this dude's serious. This is going to be good.
Yeah.
And we went and rehearsed for 6 days and recorded for 6 days. And totally cool experience.
Wow. 6 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we came back. I mean, I did the vocals back at home. At this time, we had a singer who was like a real singer. And then scheduling didn't work out. Things were weird. Okay, fine. We'll find another singer. Spend a while looking for a singer. Scheduling is weird, flakiness. Blah, I'm not going to name names. And then, okay, fine. And then another singer, and the same thing happened. And like a couple of years had passed, and I was just kind of tearing my hair out. And I was with Nico, the bass player, and he was like, you have to sing this record. We have to finish this thing. So now I'm a singer.
Wow. Yeah. Had you, because your previous bands, you didn't sing, right? Did you have experience singing?
Hell no.
Oh, wow.
Um, I thought singing was fun. I liked karaoke more than my other musician friends. I I always thought it would be neat. I had taken a few lessons like before Gygax to be like, yeah, I want to get another band soon. I'd like to be confident enough to just walk in and say like, yeah, I can do backup harmonies and I can do them well. So I had like dipped my toe in,
Wow.
but then it was like, all right, well, go practice. I was teaching guitar lessons for a living at the time. So Nico was like, you're a music teacher. You know how to practice. Go practice your instrument. Come back in 6 months. We'll record this record. So, like, yeah, when it's like, oh, there was a Queen cover on it, I'm like, I would not have put a Queen cover on this record if I would have known my beginner ass would have had to sing it. But,
You
it
you
was,
nailed it.
it
You
was,
nailed it.
I learned. I nailed it. I feel like I did the thing every new singer does, which is like push way too hard. Um, but that's what it is. Now I got a record where I sing really hard.
Yeah, and it's great. I think I'm amazed. I'm truly amazed. I had no idea that you were not a singer because I think
Brand goddamn new.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be way better on the next one because it was a learning experience.
Wow.
We did some shows and it was like, oh, now we got to do it live. Like it's one thing when your best friend's the producer and you're in a studio and you got as many tries as you want.
Yeah.
Right?
As opposed to in front of an audience. Yeah.
Yeah, then it's an audience. You get one shot, ready, go.
Yeah.
But,
Wow. Oh,
all been a learning experience.
oh, that's cool. That's amazing. Oh, I love that. That's great. So tell me about for those who don't know, you play guitar, you sing, you play keyboards and organ on the album. Um, and that, yeah, which gives it, yeah, really, really nice, especially that organ gives it a really nice organic, very 70s vibe. I love it. Yeah, very Deep
Oh
Purple,
yeah,
Uriah Heep kind of vibe to it, which
huge.
is some of
And
my
you can see
favorite.
my white strap, black hardware, Richie Blackmore style in the back. So,
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
yeah, man.
Yeah, just so cool. And what I love about it is, it's giving props to that music, but it's still very original. You're doing your own thing. It's not like, hey, we're going to try to sound like this band. I mean, there's some elements, you like I said, there's kind of, there's some Zeppelin and there's some Deep Purple and Uriah Heep, but it's very much the Fae. It's your music,
I
which is
really appreciate that because I do love all these elements, but I think we all try to get to the point where it's like, well, you try to gather enough elements from enough places that when you go to make something, it's just you and you've
yeah.
built all these tools over the years. So like, yeah, I'm sure people could definitely listen to a part and be like, oh, this guy likes Uli John Roth. And it's like, yeah, I do. I had one guy clock me super hard. We played in Portland. He was like, man, that one really shreddy tune. That's Symphony X without the keyboards. I'm like, fuck. Yeah, it is.
Nice.
But yeah,
Well,
I try to,
still though,
all that stuff, all the classic 70s bands.
yeah.
I feel like everyone latches onto like, you're shredding and everything. And I'm like, man, my favorite guitar player is Rory Gallagher. Like, it's
Oh,
not
nice.
always about the shredding. Like, I like to shred, duh. But
Yeah, and you've got, I mean, obviously you've played in, thrash metal bands and more doomy stuff as well. With Volcana has definitely some doomy elements to it.
for
Um,
sure.
but yeah, that's what I love it. It's so it's very unique, I think. And it feels very, very honest and very true to who you are as a musician. As a listener, like I said, even though there's all these elements of these other bands, it feels like this is its own thing, which I really love. And again, like lyrically, I think it's really amazing. And that the mythology and the fantasy elements of it, I love that kind of stuff. Because huge Rush fan, huge
Yeah.
Zeppelin fan, all that. Yeah, like you said, where it's kind of more subtle. It's not so it's obviously a fantasy tale or fantasy tales and mythologies, but not,
Right.
but they stand on their own, and they're I think anybody could listen to it even if they're not into fantasy, and
Right.
oh, there's a cool
I try
song.
really hard to keep away from book report songs. Like,
Yeah.
you know, there's bands who do it really well, and there's bands who make me want to gouge my ears out with these like it's like when
Right.
we in eighth grade writing lyrics that we had to do for a book report. Like, get out of
Yeah.
here. I've always really liked the stuff that's a little more vague. Like, I don't know, even I guess I'll go back to that same record I mentioned earlier, Mordred's song from Blind Guardian.
Mm.
Mordred's song doesn't say, I am the son of King Arthur and I am the child of incest, and because of that, I'm the bad guy and I will now kill my father. No, it just gets inside the head of someone who's like, cruel fate has cast me in this role that I didn't choose, but I'm stuck this way. And what about me? And it finds like the true tragedy of Mordred. And
Yeah.
it's like, wow, that's really stirring and really cool and compelling, more than just like, here are the events in order from this fucking video game because I'm too lazy to even read a book.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, I don't know. I remember reading like a Robert Plant interview when I was a teenager where he said, I think it's the lyricist in the band's job to be a little bit more well read than the rest of the population and even the rest of the band.
Yeah.
And I try to take that to heart. I try to like pull some cool inspiration.
Yeah. I think you've done that. I think you've done that well.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Really. Yeah. Like I
that's
said, I'm
cool.
really
Because
digging.
like, I don't know, I put all these weird details into the music. Like you've heard the songs, there's a lot of tracks on some of them. And it's really cool to know that someone like actually took the time to listen and
Yeah.
done
Yeah.
that stuff.
I'm
So
loving
thanks.
it. What so going forward, I'm curious, you mentioned you mentioned earlier next album. So is that in the works? Are you already starting writing? Are you guys, I mean, I know
Yeah,
you just, well, not just, I mean, it's been a year, I guess, a bit over a year since
it's
uh
been a year. We've got some stuff done. We did my record label hit me up about I don't know if I'm even allowed to talk about this yet, but a Rush tribute album.
oh
Uh,
wow.
yeah, and he's like, "Do you like Rush?" And I was like, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and that Pittsburgh was where Neil Peart played his first Rush concert, and my dad's been a fan ever since. And this was like our band, and oh my god, oh I want to do Working Man, and we didn't get to do Working Man, but we did a Farewell to Kings, and
Oh,
I'm really proud of how it came out. It was cool because we picked up a new member since we did the record.
oh, interesting.
Uh, we did a tour, and the guys in the band were like, "Let's get on a sweet tour opening for someone awesome that's going to bring big crowds in." And I was like, let's go play a bunch of small bar shows to make sure this actually works and like become a band before we think about doing anything like that. Like
Yeah.
I've never sang a show before. Like we gotta let's just work this out because I really wanted to put some spaces for improvisation in the show, some dynamics. So, um, so we did these 8 shows, and I called up Conan from Ex Mortis, who's like a friend from years and years back.
Oh yeah, nice.
And I was like, "Hey, do you want to come be the other guitar player and do these shows with me?" And he just, without missing a beat, goes, "I will if we play Der Erlkönig," which is that crazy classical piece on the record. And I was just like, all right, here we go. So Conan came up, and we had so much fun together. And he's obviously such a killer player, and I loved throwing stuff at him that he doesn't get to do in his other projects. Like, hey man, can you be like David Gilmour soundscape guy at this part? Oh yeah, cool man. Nails it on his first try. It's incredible. Um,
Nice.
yeah, can we trade off here? Can we improv here? And we all just got along really well. Everyone spoke Spanish except me. They all had a blast with that. Fucked with me a lot. So at the end of the tour, we were like, "Do you want to keep doing this?" And he said yes. So we
Excellent.
got his stuff now. So like I can't wait to show the world what he did with that Rush cover.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that. Yeah, he's an amazing guitar player. Yeah, I'm
Oh
a big
yeah,
fan of Conan. So yeah, and
super beast.
yeah, I mean, Farewell to the Kings is one of my all-time favorite. That might be my favorite Rush album of all time. So that song, yeah, I
Yeah,
can't wait to hear it. Oh,
yeah, yeah.
I'm very excited. Oh, that's great.
So we did that. We got a single that's in the process of being recorded now.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
that one's gonna be cool. It's my Dorian Gray song.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, which is funny because when I wrote this record, the first record, my first thought on the second record was like, okay, what doesn't this record have that I want more of? Space. There's a lot of intricate parts interacting with lots of cool little counterpoint, which I love. Like I'm a music geek. I don't know, I love harmony. So there's a lot of harmony. Um, the next record, I was like, I want to strip it down kind of Van Halen style, where it's like, it's the band. There's two backing parts because there's two guys that sing backing vocals. And I wanted to strip the music down and get a little more honest, dirty 70s with it.
Hmm.
Like that whole aspect of it, I'm like, this record's cool, but it's not nearly as far as I want to go with that aspect of it. So I wanted to do more of that, but I had one song that stuck out like a sore thumb. So I'm recording it as a single, and it is like the most detailed, freaking technical thing I've ever written. But I'm trying to keep it interesting and catchy. It has like a punk beat for the chorus and a dance beat for the verse. I'm
Oh,
like, all right, let's throw curveballs. Let's like kind of never stop with this. Let's try to make it still sound like the same band, but so trying a bunch of stuff with that, and then the next record, I think I have 6 or 7 tunes written.
oh wow.
I think that's going to be all the ones that are like heavy and have the band and the drum kit and stuff. And then I want to write a couple acoustic things and instrumental interludes and things, and a few of those are almost done. So we're getting there.
Nice. Do you have a target date for release? Maybe it's too early to.
I want to finish writing it by the end of November. I want to be able to say like this is ready to say like drummer start recording.
Hmm, cool. Oh wow, I can't wait to hear it. I'm excited.
That's
Can't
gonna
wait
be
to hear the
fun.
single. When does the single come out?
The single, good question. Good Lord. It was supposed to be a while ago. I have my friend working on it. He's a producer. His name's Damian Moreno, and he just is finishing up the new Dragon Force record.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like close friend of mine. So he's helping me out with the production on the single. Um, we always have fun working together because we're like really good friends, but his whole realm is like hyper polished modern metal.
Hmm. Oh,
I'm
Damien
all
as in Once Human Damien?
yeah,
Oh, okay. Oh, great player.
sweet player. You should see him play the drums. My God.
Oh, I didn't know he drummed too. Wow.
Yeah, that's how I met him. He was a drummer on a gig I played on in LA, and
Oh, wow.
we found out we liked like some very obscure like late '90s power metal bands. I found out we were just like, you like Darkmoor? Okay, we're gonna need to get
Nice.
a beer. Yeah, he's helping out, so he got busy for a while, and I was moving, and it was like, all right, we're putting this down for a second, but yeah, it's coming
Cool.
along. I'll let you know as soon as I know more.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to hear it. That'll be great.
That's another one. Conan sent me his solo already. It's just like, I love not having to be the best guitar player in the band anymore. Like, just like, hey, I want something really ripping and difficult here. Why don't you take that?
Go.
Yeah,
Nice.
come and do your thing. And he's just like, sweet. Wow.
Yeah, that guy's a monster. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's so cool. I can't wait to hear all this. Now you're still doing Mantic Ritual? Is that still happening? Are you guys kind of on hiatus or
That's still have that's one reason why the dates are like a little yeah, Mantic Ritual, we put out a 6-song EP last year,
right?
and I'm basically I used to just be the guitar player in Mantic Ritual. Now I'm like the guitar player, kind of a co-writer slash producer.
Oh, wow.
I'm like doing a lot of roles. We're doing a full length now.
Oh,
Um, it's written. Dan does like most of the writing, but then he helps on and we work on drum parts and all this stuff together, and put the tunes together. So it's written. Carlos is doing pre-production drums as we speak. We sent him demos with like programmed drum parts, and he's going to play real drums. And then I think the plan there, like mercifully, I don't run this side of Mantic Ritual, but I think the plan is then once we have those like real demos, we shop it around to labels and say, who wants to give us some money to go record this?
hmm.
But yeah, it's ready to go. I already have the guitar. I'm gonna go borrow off a friend to record it. My buddy has like an '80s Gibson V. I'm like, sweet.
Oh, nice.
So gonna go get that set up and get to work soon.
Very cool. Very cool. And then Volcana, you and Vic still doing work with,
We're still doing Volcana. It's been a little while. We just had the vinyl stuff come out, which I
yeah.
don't have a copy of. I was digging out Fey vinyl and found these that I could send along with it. But
Oh, cool.
all of Volcana, look at that. I'm so excited that all the EPs, even the old demo single thing, which, dude, the B side of this is like still maybe the sickest Volcana song. Um, that's all out on vinyl now. So
Yeah.
that's really fun. Um, I'm always down to work on Volcano. That's like the easiest band that I'm in. So yeah, whenever he's doing a bunch of Vindicator stuff right now.
Oh,
They
nice.
just played Metal Immortal Fest in Pittsburgh, and yeah, they did some live stuff. Vic does like 2 albums a year. He's a madman.
Yeah, that
So
guy's nuts.
whenever Vindicator calms down, we'll do more Volcana, and also keep myself busy. A bunch of guys from up here in Seattle are doing this thing called Glyph, which is like
Hmm.
very much the like pristine killer power metal. And they asked me to record leads on a bunch of the songs.
Oh,
So I'm
cool.
doing that. Yeah, it's Darren from Greyhawk, Rob, who's also in Greyhawk now, who just left Skeletor pretty recently, and Jeff Black from Gatekeeper and Spell up in Canada.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, they put this project together. I forget the singer's bands, but he's the one I haven't met yet. So recording some leads on that stuff. It's
Man.
always kind of fun when people just hand me finished songs and be like, "Can you just like rip over these parts?" And it's like the easy and fun part.
Hilda, you are a busy guy. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot right now.
Yeah, yeah. I would imagine it's maybe hard to, maybe not. You're a musician. You're a professional. You're a musician. Just balancing all of that and kind of switching gears. Because I mean, you've got thrash metal, doom metal, power metal, folk
Yeah,
metal, fantasy metal kind of stuff happening. Like a lot of subgenre. I would imagine sometimes it kind of maybe kind of spins around in your head a little bit.
it totally does. But it's cool because whenever you get sick of working on one, you get the refreshment of going to another.
Mm,
Like I worked on the glyph stuff and I was like, yes, this is sweet. It's a great way to get like your chops up is to do like, all right, this band is real clean, real tight. So you get your chops real clean and real tight. And then it's like once I'm like kind of tired of being mega precise, then I can go over to Mantic Ritual and be like, all right, this needs to be a little gnarlier. This is
yeah.
like a lot thrashier and dirtier. Like, and then like once I'm tired of playing like riffs that are all in the same key and sound like good normal rock and roll and heavy metal, I can be like, sweet, I'm gonna go work on some Fey music and see how I can like take this and make it weird. like,
Nice.
like what's a chord progression no one's ever used for a metal chorus? Let's see if we can pull that off. Like I get to be my like kind of musical mad scientist with that one. So it's kind of nice to stay like completely in the box with some projects and just like get it right. And then I have the Fae where it's like, fuck that, let's get wild.
Yeah. I love it. That's great. Um, let's uh let's switch gears a little bit. I'm really curious about, because obviously you're very musical, you're multi-talented, multi-instrumental. So take me back. Let's go in the Wayback Machine. You said you grew up in Pennsylvania, right? So tell me about those early years. Did you come from a musical family? Like what started you down this path?
um, I didn't come from a very musical family. Legend has it that before I was born, my dad was a sweet drummer, but he didn't play after I was born.
Hmm.
Um, but he showed me a lot of cool music. So I grew up in very rural Western Pennsylvania. I always tell people like a 45-minute drive from the nearest traffic light. Um, so out in the Shire, and it's cool. That whole area, it's like the Pittsburgh coal miner culture, like factory and all that stuff. So like classic rock just like runs the universe there.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
I grew up with like so well steeped in that stuff, and my dad was a fan of like a lot of the 70s rock and prog bands that like kind of influenced the bands I ended up getting into.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I was really into music. I played the tuba starting in fourth grade. I begged so hard that they let me join the school band a year or two early. Because I was like, I want to play music so bad. And they were just like, all right, kid, Jesus. Uh, uh, so I started on the tuba because it was the biggest and loudest one of them. Uh, it's the heavy Sabbath riffs of the
Yeah.
elementary school band. So then I remember my friends and I in like end of fifth grade were like, we should start a band because we saw that on some TV show or something. And like there wasn't a music scene at all where I was. There were cover bands in bars sometimes, but until you're old enough to go to bars, that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So I heard Zeppelin on the radio and I heard Black Dog, like the riff, and was like, well, I guess I have to play guitar now, which like totally messed my life up. I was like a good kid, straight A's. I kind of slept through high school and got straight A's the whole time. I probably could have had a decent like real job. But unfortunately, Jimmy Page with his glowing eyes,
Yeah.
like the song remains the same, weird music box, Aleister Crowley house scene,
Yeah.
bored into my soul and was like, no,
Yeah.
you should play riffs. And I'm like,
Jeff has been captivated.
like, okay, I guess this is it, man. Um, yeah, I heard the Pipers calling, and then yeah, I just started playing and playing and playing. Had a couple of my friends I played with, and I found when I was like 16, it was like Napster era, late 90s, and I had found like new metal was big at the time, and I liked it. Like I liked Seven Strings, and I liked angst, and I was 14, and it was cool, and it didn't sound like the bands that my dad had shown me, and that was sweet. Because like you have to piss your parents off with rock and roll. If your dad
Yeah.
already thinks Van Halen is cool, then you got to find what he hates.
Yeah. What's going to
So
annoy him?
yeah, so I was into that, and then I stumbled onto like Rhapsody and Dream Theater.
Mm.
Some kid moved from Edmonton, Alberta, to my town, and was like, "Oh, you're like pretty good actually. You should hear the stuff my friend listens to." And it was like Rhapsody, Dream Theater, a couple like obscure '90s power metal bands. And I was just like kind of over the moon. And then I found like Ingve, and I just went to work and was like, all right, we're gonna learn Dream Theater songs, Bodum songs, Symphony X songs. I fell hard for Symphony X. Um, I got just like really into this kind of Euro metal stuff. And then I went to music school. The other big learning thing in high school was if you wanted to play shows, there was either the twice a year talent show where you played for the high school, or you could play people's graduation parties, which meant you had to learn a 4 hour set.
Jeez.
So yeah, they would just be like, play 4 hours. That's what bands do, right? No one had any concept of like what bands and musicians are at different ages. There was like no arts culture there. So they were just like, can you play 4 hours? And we were like, okay. So we're like, all right, guys, we got a couple months to learn 4 hours of songs.
Oh my
So
God.
we learned piles of covers, and it was such a cool learning experience. And we would do fun stuff and change the songs and leave improv space. And, we would do Moby Dick. And during the drum solo, we would make the crowd do a dance contest and like give them prize. Like, we had a fucking blast. We would make an intro of like the Bill and Ted at the end of the movie where they get the sweet licks from Steve Vai, and
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah, we went totally nuts. We had a lot of fun with it, but then went to school with the mission of meet a band and drop out of school. It was Meltdown. I met them at the beginning of the second year of college, and that ended up turning into Mantic Ritual.
Mm.
So we dropped out of school and moved to LA, and like got signed to Nuclear Blast like right away. We're just like, holy shit, it worked. Like, what do we do? We're like kids. So yeah, kind of just like spiraled from there. And yeah, I
That's
think that was
crazy.
the end of the early years.
Wow, that is wild. Yeah, and then I know you and Dan and you were in Warbringer for a short
Oh
period
yeah,
of
that
time.
was Ben and I. Yeah, so Mantic had moved to LA. When we got signed, we ended up moving back to Pittsburgh because we were like, well, if we're going to be on tour, we can't afford to live in LA. Quitting your job and going on tour. So yeah, if your parents live in LA, I'm very happy for you. But
Yeah.
ours did not. So we moved home, and then the band broke up. And then one like horrific winter, it was like God, like 2009 or 10, like those snowpocalypse years that happened. I got called to the bar, and like five of my friends, including Ben, were like, "We're going back to LA. Are you coming?" And I was just like, "Yes. When do we leave?" So Ben and I moved back to LA, and like really quickly got snapped up by Warbringer, and
Nice.
that year happened, and that was wild.
That was, yeah, and you both you recorded the Empires album. That was
Yeah,
2012, 2013-ish. I'm so
that was
bad with years.
2013.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, killer
Wow, 10
album.
years. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
10, yeah, it was 10
10
years.
years. I have to look up the release date. Man, that's going to be a 10-year thing.
Yeah,
Keep
yeah, it
meaning to
was
do
10
like a
years, man.
playthrough video of like solos and stuff from that record. That was fun.
Yeah, yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, that'd be really cool. Yeah, and that's such a great album. Such a
I
great.
like it. It's definitely like the weird one of the Warbringer discography, but I like that.
Yeah, yeah. It has a, even like the album cover is doesn't look
Yeah.
like a Warbringer album even. But yeah, I think that's one of the band's best albums personally. I think it's incredible. Um,
It was a lot of fun to make that record. I quit as soon as it was done. There was a lot going on that just like wasn't for me, but writing that record was cool. Like those guys are I learned so much from John Locks. It is like absurd.
hmm.
And it was cool because I was very schooled. Like I went to music school and I liked music school and I study music. and John was like very self-taught, but he was just like the most worn-in road dog you can imagine. So like I would be like, that note doesn't work with that note at the counterpoint, and he would just be like, like, by the way, your tone sounds fucking stupid. You need to turn the treble down. Press it up. And I'd be like, oh wow, like so yeah, really really cool times. Getting to know Carlos really well, who's now doing the drums for Mantic Ritual.
Yeah. Great drummer. What an amazing drummer that guy is. Yeah, I've been lucky enough to see him live, and whew,
Yeah, Carlos is a beast, man. He nails it. He's a great guitar player too. He
oh
wrote
really?
he wrote most of Empire's Collapse.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, there's I wrote a couple tunes. Ben wrote one tune. Locks wrote a bunch of stuff, but like Carlos made that shit happen. He's such a pro.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, like Hunter Seeker, that was a Carlos tune.
Oh, nice.
We're like 2 days from going in the studio, and it's like we need two more tunes, and Carlos just like rolled in with Hunter Seeker and saved the day.
Nice, nice. That's great. Um, yeah, just so many cool things. And I know you played with live. You played with Lich King for a little bit, right?
That was right before me and Ben moved back to LA.
Okay.
Um, yeah, Tom hit me up and he's like, "Hey, we're Lich King. We're this band. We we want to do this tour. We crowdsourced a van to do the tour, and we've tricked it out. Our guitar player can't go on the road. I hit up Vic from Vindicator. He's a friend. He can't go. He said, you're always down to hit the road. And I'm like, cool, when is it? And I'm like, I'll quit my job 2 weeks earlier. And if you feed me, I'll go on the road with your band and fuck around and play heavy metal. And then I'll move to LA. It'd be great.
Nice.
So he's like, cool. Also, we're between bass players. I'm like, oh, it's fine. Ben will come too. So
Awesome.
it was it was a silly gig, dude. Like me and Ben learned the music like the day before. We just got to his mom's house because we listened to the band and we're like, we don't like this band at all. Like, we're just like, this sucks. Well, it'll be a fun 2 weeks, whatever. And we learned it the day before, and we're just like, okay, those early albums is all like Tom and programmed drums when he was doing it all himself. So we're like, okay, dude, these programmed drums are at super high tempos. I hope their drummer's good because if he's not, this is gonna be a long 2 weeks. Like, oh god. And like, I don't know who they have playing guitar now, but I hope he can hang. Like, well, we'll see what we're getting into. And we showed up, and like Brian was immediately a super rock solid drummer, and we're like, all right, we're gonna be good.
Yes.
Yeah, we procrastinated and learned the stuff the night before. We were total assholes on this tour. We were like 24. We were about to just like throw our lives away again and move to LA, and we're like, whatever. Like they put a fridge in the van, and Ben and I were like, we would throw away all the food in the fridge and just refill it with beer like every day. It was just like totally, and like we would play shirtless on stage because we knew Tom hated it, and we got the other guitar player to start doing it. Ben brought his fretless bass just to be a dick. I brought my Strat, and it had like bitch and thrash pickups in it at the time, but no one knew that. So I would pull it out of the case, and everyone would just be like, so yeah, we just kind of had fun. We had like a weird little antagonistic relationship with Tom. We had fun.
That's great.
Tom didn't have fun. I don't think other guys did.
That sounds like that would have been a fun tour to see.
It was cool. Tom found out the first day of rehearsal that I could play the scene from Bill and Ted where Beethoven shreds while they trash the mall. That Extreme song. And I was warming up and playing it, and he was just like, you know this? Like, dude, we're all about this like 80s throwback thing. So like we gotta arrange this right now. So yeah, it was a neat tour. We had fun.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah.
I was curious about specifically with the Fae. I was curious about the songwriting process. Is that mostly you? Are you coming up with the the basics of all of that, or not just the basics, but the concepts and or is it? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Compositionally, the Fae is my baby.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. So
yeah, I had like no creative input in all of the bands that I was in. I mean, not none, but minimal. And I started to get really frustrated by that. By the time I made it to, like, I didn't really care in my earlier bands. I was just like, dude, I'm like a farm kid touring with Exodus. Like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Like, this is fine. And then I'm in Warbringer and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like traveling the world playing these big festivals. Like, dude, I'll play whatever the fuck you want me to play. This is great. But after a while, like, I don't know, we made that record and I wrote a couple tunes for it. And then I joined Gygax and I had like very little input. And I was just like, excuse you, Warbinger's a way bigger deal than this band. And they were all about me writing tunes for this record. So, like, why are you being weird? What I now get is like, Eric had a vision. He knew what it was supposed to sound like. He did. It was his thing. It's like Mantic with Dan. I argue with Dan about stuff sometimes. That EP we put out last year, I was just like, I hate this mix and you cannot release this. Like, what are you fucking doing? And then he released it, and 6 months later, I'm like, hey, you know what? Dan was right. It's his band. This sounds exactly how it should sound. So that was what Gygax was. But at the time, I was like really frustrated by it. I was like, dude, I have a Zeppelin tattoo the day I got the day I turned 18. Like, I know what to do in your 70s band. But he was all like, oh, you're going to try to turn it into a prog band. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I joined this band because it's poppy. I like that too.
Yeah.
So I got really, really frustrated by that. And I was like, I want to write music. And I was really into like intricately fitting all kinds of little parts together and being like, I want to make a band that like, it sounds raw because it's recorded raw, but it sounds good because everyone's like a real cat on their instrument. And I was finally like, well, I've been doing this for like 20 years now. I think I know guys who can like really hang. I got this like South American rhythm section that's been playing R&B together for decades. Like,
yeah,
this is going to be good. So, yeah, it's kind of my space to really be like a composer. So, I don't know. When people are like, what are your influences from the Fae? I'm like, there's all these bands, but the way I'm looking at the parts is like, that record is a ton of Felix Mendelssohn, ton of J.S. Bach. Like, I don't know. Not many bands write this way, where you write the parts to all like kind of weave around each other and stuff. And I tried to put as much of that in as I could. Like a lot of Jethro Tull does this. I think of like, you know, the early Opeth, where like the guitars are never going in the same direction.
Yeah.
They're just kind of these like twining vines that are always around each other. So, I got like really obsessed with making a band that could do that and still sound groovy. So I wrote everything because it was like, look, there's not really a lot of room for fucking around. Like everything's more intricate than you think. And I just wanted the chance to do that and just be in like super creative control. And
yeah, I think you
cool.
nailed it too. Yeah, I think you really nailed it because it's interesting. Yeah, I think your analogy with Jethro Tull, I think is, yeah, again, it's like it's its own thing. It doesn't necessarily sound like anything else, but yeah, I think that's a good analogy, as kind of that, because Jethro Tull always had its own vibe.
Its own sound. And those songs
Yeah.
are so composed. Like you can't fuck around with the bass line in any of the Jethro Tull songs because that'll clash with the guitar line that it's interacting with. Like,
yeah,
it's all very composed. Or like Rush, doing the Rush cover was so tricky because you want to put a stamp on it when you cover it and do your own thing with it. But it's like, look, man, Rush, they found all the details in this songs.
yeah,
Like, oh, I'm going to add some flourishes. It's like, no, every part where one guy is holding out a note, the other guys are busy.
yeah,
And like and vice versa. And it's like they found all the spots to put stuff. They've already done the work, man. So like, yeah, my only spots on that were like the solos and the intro, and I added some vocal harmonies. But I was like, you can't move this bass line, it'll clash with the drum part. You can't move the drum part, it'll clash with the guitars.
yeah.
Like so that's, to me, like the strength and weakness of the Fae record is very much, I like the intricacy of it, but that's the first thing I wanted to let go of on the next record. Is like,
Oh,
I
interesting.
want more like Dionysian, just like rip into your instrument, old rock and roll shit. So
Oh.
it's a journey.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. I'm excited to hear what's to come. Do you guys have and I know it's probably maybe a little tricky because you're not all in the same parts of the world. Do you have touring plans at this point, or any shows lined up?
Not at this point. Um, I'm having a kid in like 2 months,
Oh
so
wow, congratulations.
I'm gonna figure out what that looks like. Thank you. Um, yeah, I want to get the album written, then I want to start recording it, and once we get it recorded, I want to do like proper press and stuff for it this time. The first album and tour, I had kind of soured on the music industry so hard that I was like, I want to do everything myself.
Hmm.
So I wrote the album. I found the artist. He's a friend of mine. Nico produced and mixed it. Damien mastered it. uh, one of my closest friends did like the layout and the typesetting and everything. I wrote all of the music and all of the lyrics. I put it out myself. I paid for it to be recorded. I at least got a record label to make the vinyl happen. Glory or Death Records from the Great Electric Quest guys. Buddy has this record label. If you haven't listened to the Great Electric Quest or seen them live,
I have not.
band that's going to save rock and roll. They're like the real reason I quit Gygax.
Oh, okay.
I was in a 70s rock band that had to get everything note for note perfect in the shows, and I'm like, I feel like this is a concept that didn't even exist in the 70s.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was weird. And then I saw the Great Electric Quest like tear the walls off a place, and like they had the fucking audacity to open a bar set with a 10-minute drum solo.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, what? And everyone was like milling around. And by the end of it, it was like a straight up like bacchanal, like people losing their minds, throwing themselves at the stage. And then it cut into a 2-minute unaccompanied guitar solo.
Oh, wow.
And then the first song started. And I was like, this is the ballsiest band I've
Yeah,
ever
that
seen. And
is
by the end of the set, I was just like, yeah, this band's gonna save rock and roll.
yeah,
This
that's a
is what's
bold
up.
move. I love it.
Yeah, and just taking chances and being so wild with it, and that was kind of what inspired me to make the Fae. Was like, this is amazing. So yeah, that guy started a record label, and I was like, please, let's work together because like
Nice.
I think you know what's up.
That's so cool. I love the fact that I mean, I'm sure it was an insane amount of work for you, but I love the DIY. I think.
Yeah, it was stupid. Like I did the tour myself too. Like I
Oh,
booked it.
jeez.
I flew everyone here. I got everyone in Seattle. They all crashed my place. I found the rehearsal spot. I got all the merch made. I just did everything. And I'm glad I did. I burned out bad for like a couple of I didn't pick up an instrument for like months after
Oh,
that.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And it was weird. It was like I found out what it's like to like be an asexual person. Like you read what they say on the internet, and I've talked to people, and it's like, yeah, like this feeling, that's what sex is like to me. It's like that's like how I felt when I would sit down at the piano or pick up my guitar, and I'm like, yeah, I can do this for 5 minutes and it's whatever, but I have nothing is like lighting up. This is
Yeah.
not cool anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like seriously 4 months to get over. And I was like, okay, I want to do this again. Now I know we're ready for it though. I was like making the record. I was like, I made this whole weird record myself. I made sure Nico mixed it because Nico doesn't listen to metal at all.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, he's in Trance now, Luna's new band too. And I'm just like, Nico, you're in two metal bands. I've been trying to get you to listen to metal for a fucking decade, and now you're in two metal bands. But I made sure he would mix it because I was like, no, I don't want this to sound like every fucking SM57 in front of vintage 30s with the mid scooped in exactly this spot. I'm like Jens Bogren mix. Bleh. That's like, I don't know. Remember when bands sounded different from each other? Like, so I'm like really protective of that. Like, no, I don't want a metal mix, dude. Like, I like metal mixes, but Jesus Christ, everyone has the same one now.
All right. Yeah. 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 That's a good point. There's so many clones of one another.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming. Yeah.
So that aspect of it, I would like to keep. Like, I would like us to be recording our own records and to be producing our own records. But all the rest of it, I'm like dying to hand off to some industry people.
Cool.
Like the social media stuff, I'm like, I'm horrific at this, man.
Yeah, you don't want to deal with that shit. Yeah, you want to focus on the music and yeah,
Yeah, I just don't have the time anymore, you know?
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, well, Jeff, this has been an absolute delight talking to you. I do have one more question for you before I let you go. I
All
know
right.
you're a craft beer guy. I know you like your beer, and you live in Seattle where there's lots of tasty craft beer.
So much.
So, as you know, my page is Brews and Tunes. I pair metal and hard rock with craft beer. So I'm going to put you on the spot. I apologize.
Let's go. I thought we
So
talked about beer earlier,
yeah,
honestly.
yeah. So it's a Friday night. You're hanging out at home. What beer are you drinking? And what album are you spinning?
Okay. First of all, cheers.
Oh yeah, cheers, my friend.
Um, beers. Today's the last day of summer.
Oh, that's right.
So for my pagan ass band, I figured I'd bust out my favorite. I have stockpiled this summer. This is Fremont Brewing's Summer Ale.
Oh, nice. I love Fremont.
I am which one? The Lush probably is the one you know.
The last Fremont I had was the Hustle.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Fremont makes a lot of good beers. The Summer Ale, this might be my favorite beer.
yeah,
It's a pale ale. I like a good pale ale.
me
The
too.
IPA stuff like kind of reigns supreme up here, but I'm like, IPAs are fine, but like you don't need to go all the way in, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Just a good pale ale. The summer ale is awesome. Seattle is all about the seasons because we're so far north that like the summer, the sun's out all day, every day, and it's just the most amazing place ever. And then most of the year it's just gray and the clouds are 10 feet above your roof and the sun sets at 3:30 p.m. and it's like 90s Seattle music and you're just like, ugh. So this stuff only comes, they only produce it in the summer and it's fucking incredible. And I stockpiled it this year. I just started buying 4 packs at my spot and I drink one and bring the rest home.
nice.
Yeah. Record that I'm spinning. Today I worked on my studio. I just moved into this place and I was listening to Diary of a Madman
Oh,
and Mark
yeah,
of the Moon.
right
I've had
on.
this one in a while, and it's funny that we were talking about Rush. There's a lot of Rush on those records.
Yeah,
There's these melodic keyboardy parts. There's some spacey guitar solos that just are directly out of Rush.
yeah,
Really cool. So
yeah.
yeah, just I don't know, for whatever reason I got like Over the Mountain stuck in my head on the way home and was like, this is what I'm listening to today.
Oh yeah, such a great track. Oh, it's such a great track.
Yeah. How about
Randy
yourself?
Rhoads.
What are you drinking and listening to?
So I'm drinking, it's got a stupid name. It's a hoppy lager. It's an American pale lager. It's a local beer here in Utah in Salt Lake. I'm about 30 miles, 40 miles north of Salt Lake. So it's from TF Brewing, but it's called Golfer's Delight.
Golfer's
Which is a
Delight.
terrible name. And I, no offense to anybody, I hate golf, hate it. I used to play it, hate this stupid game. So I'm drinking that. And I guess before we got on, I was listening to, when I first was drinking this, what was I listening to? Oh, I was listening to Riot, Thundersteel.
Killer.
So yeah, it's been a while since I listened to that album, and yeah, great album. And yeah, and it's funny, it's interesting that I'm a massive Rush fan, huge, like probably my favorite band
Excellent.
ever. I love Rush. And it's funny because I didn't realize this until recently. I'm in my 50s, and I love new wave of British heavy metal music. I never really got the connection until more recently about
There's a
how
ton.
influential Rush was to all of those bands. Um,
I
yeah,
mean, Merciful Fate has a bunch of Rush in it.
yeah,
Really cool to hear. And like Maiden. I mean,
yeah,
there's
yeah,
just
Cloven
yeah.
Hoof, and yeah, all those bands, like, and they all talk about, yeah, when you read interviews, or see interviews with a lot of those guys, and they always bring up Rush and how much, I guess, that club, which I forget the name of, in where all the new wave British heavy metal bands were playing in those early days. Like
Mhm.
that they played a lot of Van Halen there and Rush. I mean, which makes sense. It was late 70s. So
Totally.
yeah, but yeah, very influential with all of that stuff. And um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I've made the connection recently. I've watched some interviews where Alex and Getty talk about how Rush is one of their first tours as like we're a real band now was opening for Rory Gallagher,
oh
who
wow,
I don't know if you're into Rory. He's
I
this
love,
Irish blues rocker.
yeah,
He's my guy. Like
great
I'm
musician.
obsessed with Rory. And like you listen from the second Rush album on, and Alex has this thing in his phrasing. Like that really pinchy harmonic kind of like plinkety
Yeah,
staccato stuff. And it's like, oh my God, that's a Rory thing.
yeah,
Like, wow, that's so yeah. I love finding those connections of what bands are
yeah,
listening to each other. And
yeah, very cool.
oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know you were in Salt Lake. Bloodstar crashed at my house last weekend.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're on tour with Entranced right now.
Oh, nice.
So
Right on.
Nico from the Fae and Luna, formerly of the Fae, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, they were like, "Oh, we're coming through, and can we crash?" I'm like, "Of course." And then they're like, "Can the other band?" And I'm like, "Dude, I did just move into a bigger place, but my wife is 6 months pregnant," and she
Yeah.
was like, "What? Tell them to come over. I bought a bunch of eggs. We'll make breakfast." So yeah, we had Bloodstar over.
Oh,
Turned out, they knew a bunch of guys. I did a punk album in Salt Lake, a couple of, like during the Gygax era.
oh, you did, really?
The Politician with Sean Smithson. I don't know if you're aware.
I did
Um,
not know that. What a small world. That's crazy.
yeah, yeah, it's a fun record. He
Nice.
wrote some great songs.
Yeah. Oh,
So
that's
very small
cool.
world. You guys have a scene very much like Seattle where bands like each other and support each other, and it's really incredible and just
Yeah.
like a beautiful thing to witness. I got to spend a few weekends there, like recording and then playing some shows, and was like, you guys have a very amazing scene. I love it.
Yeah, it's a smaller scene, but it's a pretty tight the underground scene. And the cool thing is, I think Utah, specifically Salt Lake, has had a long running underground scene. And I think it, especially people from out of state, it kind of always kind of shocks them, because it's Mormons, all the Mormons
Right.
here.
This is a Mormon thing, yeah.
But there's also
And
going
then
to be
you find
this
out everyone who's
counterculture.
not a Mormon all has to stick together and
Yeah,
like
and fight the
counterculture having
power.
something to fight against makes it cool. Like you guys' music scene is queer as fuck. And
Yeah,
like
yeah,
LA isn't like that. And I was
yeah,
like, this is cool. Like that's part of why I named my band after the fairies. Like I want that element in there.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
man, Salt Lake has that in spades. It's super cool.
yeah,
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 I absolutely was floored by the number of great players. I mean, God,
yeah,
uh, the record I did was produced by Andy Patterson, who's the Sub Rosa guy, and I was just like, wow, there's talented players in Salt Lake. Good lord.
yeah. There's a lot of cool bands here, and it's a weird scene. It's frustrating. For me as a metalhead, just because there aren't that many places for metal bands to play. There are a few.
You got
Uh,
a cool like you got some noteworthy bands. You got Visigoth. They
yeah,
were tight with the
Visigoth.
Gygax guys and really
Yeah,
graciously awesome to us when they came through. And
yeah, yeah. Super. Yeah, very talented band. There's an older band. I shouldn't say old. They're like my age, but
we're all old bands at this.
Truce, old, thrash metal band. They've been around since '83, I think,
Wow.
still going. And they opened for Exodus, they've opened for Testament, they've opened for all these bands. They're opening for Vector next month.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so they're releasing some of their old stuff, and yeah, killer, amazing. And those guys probably would have made it, if they had moved to LA, but they all had
Right.
families and jobs, and but they're still going strong, which is great. So you got a lot of cool stuff like that. And yeah, I think
That's
it's
cool.
funny because there was especially in the late '80s, the punk scene in Utah, was pretty strong. And I don't think, a lot of people don't realize, the
Well, there's that
underground.
movie about it.
Yeah, yeah,
My
SLC
friends and I
Punk.
loved SLC Punk when we went to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
first
that's a pretty true story. That was pretty much what it was like back then. Like my ex-wife's brother owned the Speedway, which was a punk club. And yeah, I mean, Dead Kennedys, Fugazi, all those
Yeah.
kind of bands play Circle Jerks. Those kind of bands played there. Yeah, so it just yeah, there was a cool scene here. It was very I mean, Slaughter Christ came from Utah. you know.
I love like it's always more fun when there's someone to fight against. My first ever tour was Mantic Ritual. We became Mantic Ritual. We changed the name on the last day of this tour. And
Oh,
Rattlehead, who was like the party band of
I
LA.
remember Rattlehead.
Remember Rattlehead? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Rattlehead was the party band. I have a guest solo on their second record. We became really tight. We met them right as we moved there. They had a rehearsal space around the corner. Um, we did our first tour together. We shared a van and we did a DIY run. It was right like before we started doing the like we're a signed band rail tours. And we played Salt Lake, and it was put together by some like Mormon kid at a VFW, and like his dad and grandpa were like running the ticket sales at the front. And his dad was like barely cool with this happening, and you could tell it was like you have to do something that supports your son's interests, and he was like, fine. And it was like he was like very buttoned up, and his kid was like over the moon, like two bands from LA are coming to play with my band. And his band played and some other band was playing, and we were about to play, and we're like, hey, we're the Rattlehead dudes. And we find them in the van, and they're giving whiskey to this like 16-year-old Mormon kid.
Oh shit.
And we're like, oh fuck. he got to Rattlehead, like, oh no. And they're just like, hey kid, you want a drink? Like he gets piss drunk instantly because he's like some kid who's never had alcohol before and he's being handed whiskey. And his dad gets one side of him and is like, all right, shut the whole thing down. We're going home. I knew it.
Oh no.
The show gets canceled, and we're like, dude, we're like a bunch of poor 22-year-olds. We don't have any money. We don't have anywhere to stay. Our show got canceled. Like, oh shit. But we found out one of the bowling alleys had like a metal meetup, and it was like a Monday or something, and it was Metal Mondays. So we went there, and like some guy gave us a place to crash, and everyone bought us drinks, and
Oh
like,
nice.
the scene came together and like provided for. So they didn't see us play. We didn't play, but the scene came together to like protect its own. It was cool.
Yeah, there's a good I think there's a like you say, protect your own. Yeah, there's a good camaraderie of metalheads in Utah. It's a small group of us, but yeah, we all support one another, and yeah,
Really cool.
that's so cool. Oh, I love that. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, you guys got a good thing going.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, this has been an absolute delight chatting with you. For those of you watching, look in the description below. I've got links to the Fae. Definitely check out the Fae. Buy books with maps. Such an incredible album. Like I said, I pulled it up on Bandcamp. I got through like maybe the third track. I'm like, I have to buy this. I have to own this album. I love this. Yeah, one of those albums which it's getting more rare for me that I immediately fall in love with an album. And I definitely did that, very, sincerely. I definitely fell in love with that album immediately. Just something new and fresh and just such a killer sound. But yeah, sorry, I'm going off. Yeah,
please. I mean,
check it out.
And tell everyone you love my music. You can do that.
Check it out. Yeah, so I've got links to check that out, as well as Mantic Ritual and Volcana. Also great bands. Volcana's last album kicks ass, so definitely check that out too. So again, Jeff, thank you so very much. This has been a blast.
Victor, it's been a pleasure. Till next time.
Yeah, cheers, my friend.
Later.
Oops.